Five Nights at Freddy's has recently gotten a ton of news with the next game in the franchise finally being secretly announced. Scott Cawthon finally returned with a new troll FNAF game, and even some minor controversy as well. So starting with the new FNAF game, after Security Breach released in 2021 following a couple DLCs and side projects, a big question people have been wondering is what is next for the FNAF games? And to answer this, if you didn't know, there are currently 3 active game developers for the FNAF franchise. One being Scott Cawthon, who we talk about a lot later, Steelwool Studios, who makes the bigger games like Security Breach and Help Wanted, and then there's Click Team, who up until this point has only ever made the FNAF console ports and published the Fanverse games. However, recently this Click Team company has been up to something extremely suspicious, as just a couple weeks ago the developers made a brand new tweet asking for new hires and game developers to work on some sort of temporary project with their team that they needed some extra staff for, with a promo picture shown below being some type of render of Lolbit saying that we need some help. So the developers were asking for some brand new staff to presumably help with a random project, and they even gave us this whole new render presumably of what they were working on. Plus, while they were hesitant to comment, when people asked what this was all for, they simply said it was for a secret project. So clearly something odd is going on here, and it would get even weirder when just a few days ago the devs announced that they were closing the work applications and gave us another new piece of art of Freddy biting a child's hand that also appears to be for this brand new game in some way, but I'm not sure how. However, the devs since then, just in general, have been getting super active in the FNAF community, even updating the old mobile ports of the first 4 FNAF games, probably to promote the upcoming movie, but they still never explained what this new tease game is going to be for, so what could this be? Well, I've seen a few different theories, and the first one I want to talk about is the balloon circus theory, which is a theory brought up multiple times before, talking about a merch line that Funko released earlier this year under the title Five Nights at Freddy's Balloon Circus, some sort of brand new game either scrapped or coming in the future, which we have been waiting for an update on since the merch officially released. And looking at our currently only render of the game, while we can't see any of the characters from the merch, it is notable that Lolbit here seems to be in some type of prize counter area, judged by the cartoony cupcake plush at the top, and they are even wearing a large, almost comedic purple bow tie, definitely fitting the vibe of the rest of the other characters in the hidden game. I don't know, maybe that's true. However, the second, and in my opinion the best theory, is that this could possibly be for a FNAF World 2, a sequel to the extremely infamous but also super popular FNAF World that released all the way back in the post FNAF 4 era, which, while there hasn't been much confirmation, has been an extremely popular request for the devs to do, since nowadays the original FNAF World is super outdated and needs some big updates to it to modernize it with the new animatronics and stuff like that. And what makes me believe this theory the most is that if we look back at the Lolbit teaser, like we already said, they appear to be running some type of prize counter type thing. But if you've played the first FNAF World, you might remember that Lolbit's main role was to be the merchant of the game, selling the player items throughout their playthrough, which is extremely similar to what we see in this screenshot, where Lolbit, once again of all people, is handling another shop of their own, where presumably we will be able to buy certain things as well, assuming this theory is correct. And what you'll notice is that this image is noticeably zoomed in, and there are things like a door over here that we could see just barely cut off from the side. So perhaps if this is a FNAF World sequel, we could enter this area just like how we would in the first game and be able to buy things in the same exact way. And plus, the game's art style looks relatively similar to FNAF World, but in a much more polished way, and it still very much gives off that retro vibe that the original FNAF World had, just with a little bit more personality. So while I don't want to overpromise and theorize, it seems to me like this is definitely looking like a FNAF World 2 or something in a similar genre, especially since there is so much fan hype for a title like that at the moment. However, whether this theory is right or not, no matter what, this game still looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and judged from the graphics, we can at the very least make the prediction that this will probably not be a horror game or anything like that, and will instead be more of a side project while the other developers at places like Steelwool work on the bigger and longer projects. Moving on from this game though, just a couple days ago, the other developer, Scott Cawthon, released a brand new game that was interesting to say the least and very controversial to say the most. As with the FNAF movie coming out literally in like a couple days of recording for some people, Scott made a post on Game Jolt titled FNAF Movie movie the game, advertising it as a new game based on the FNAF movie that had big plot spoilers. However, when downloading it, we would then be met with a troll game titled Freddy in Space 3, a sequel to Freddy in Space 1 and 2 released years previously. And for the most part, the gameplay of this game is exactly what you'd expect if you're familiar with Scott's arcade titles. It's just a regular mini shooter with not too much to say about it, except for at the end, he actually did give us a pretty big 8-minute movie teaser, which was pretty cool. However, what made this game super controversial is that there were various different troll levels we could play in, most of which were relatively harmless, such as a FNAF merch level with various references and a quiz level, which was cool. But perhaps the weirdest one of them all was a world titled NSFW Island that, as you could expect when playing, poked fun at a certain type of fan art made for the game, with a bunch of trolling and references to that type of stuff. However, this little mini game actually sparked way more controversy than I think people were expecting because of this level. As of course, the FNAF movie and the entire FNAF community has a generally younger audience, as you would expect, and the movie itself is only rated PG-13, so there were most likely a lot of younger people drawn towards this troll game advertised as a game about the movie, which on no place other than the infamous Twitter started a bunch of outrage throughout the community, with people saying that this was drawing attention from all of these younger viewers to the semi-mature content in the game's levels. And while to an extent I can actually kind of agree with this point, because naturally FNAF fans, regardless of age, are going to want to play the next big game in the franchise, even if it ends up including some more mature content, you also have to remember that on the Game Jolt page, the game was literally marked as mature content and only for certain audiences in the first place. And plus, if you've actually played the game or seen it, it doesn't actually show any art or anything. It just poked fun at the idea and makes some funny references to it as well. But what I think overall the angry fans need to understand is that Scott for a while now has always been a little bit of a troll and is more than willing to poke fun at different sides of the community like this, which, to be honest, after how much hate he's been getting in the past couple of years, to see him still trolling and having fun with the community is honestly a good thing, if anything. And although I don't think he's actively making any FNAF games anymore and rather is just managing the FNAF name behind the scenes, it's still really good to see that he is hanging around and joking and interacting with the community in some way, which is something I don't think most or even any other developer would do after they retired and left their community seemingly for good. However, after all of this drama, Scott would even make a mini response to the criticism in a Reddit post talking about the FNAF movie, where he would simply say, "Sorry for the troll, I promise I'll never do it again." Or in other words, he's 100% going to be doing it again.